Good evening. It is my privilege and honor to call this 188th annual meeting of the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry to order. I'm Carla Baer, chair of the board. And it's my now privilege and honor to introduce our executive director and senior minister, the Reverend Mary Margaret Earl, to offer our invocation.
Thank you, Carla. So may we gather in gratitude for this time together, a moment in the rush of doing and moving to pause and reflect. May we gather in gratitude for the sturdiness of an old and strong organization that gives us a framework for continuing justice work, even as we are called to change that work. May we gather in gratitude for the knitting together of community and communities across Boston and Greater Boston, and for the creativity and perseverance and courage that gives life to the urban ministry year after year after year for hundreds of years. And for each and every person gathered here, for your hearts, for your care, and for your work to help us walk together to build a better world. Thank you, and may our time tonight be blessed and made sacred by our presence and our intentions. Welcome, friends. So good evening to our dear delegates and our board members and all of our friends. Welcome to the 188th annual meeting of the UU Urban Ministry. This is an important tradition in our history. It's a night when delegates representing our 46 member congregations gather as spelled out in our bylaws. We gather so you can elect board members and nominating committee members, and it's when our treasurer apprises you of financial results for the fiscal year ending April 30th. It's important business, but this is also the time when we gather to reflect, to look back on our work over this past year and see where we are. And where we are is in the midst of a time of reimagining. We are reimagining the work of our nearly 200-year-old organization, reimagining the life inside our 220-year-old meeting house, reimagining our programs, our approach to partnership, and reimagining even how we engage with our delegates and our congregations. We began reimagining our very purpose during the pandemic, and we emerged 2 years ago with a bold mission to work across race and place to dismantle racism, white supremacy culture, and to advance racial, social, and economic justice. These words cried out to be more than words. They called for change. And so we have been forging new paths forward. We reimagine our meeting house. This year, the Boston Landmark Commission declared the meeting house the city's newest historic landmark. And as that news was proclaimed, workers were busy inside this space, stripping faded paint, scraping chipping plaster, and rewiring old fixtures. We are making way for new life in the meeting house, for challenging dialogue, for arts and music and historians who inspire and tell truths. The meeting house, too, anchors our work interrogating the past. 3 years ago, we committed to examining our urban ministry history and the history of First Church Roxbury and how we served and failed to serve communities of color. In partnership with the Roxbury Historical Society, we completed the first phase of that work with a report entitled Race and Slavery at First Church Roxbury. It was by the Harvard researcher and graduate student Abid Alabai. This report tells the story of 58 human beings, Black and Indigenous men, women, and children who were enslaved by First Church's white parishioners. We learned that the congregation's first minister was an enslaver. Now, again, in partnership with the Roxbury Historical Society, We are convening Roxbury community members to consider how we interpret this report, how we reimagine the telling of our history for all who come and visit. We are reimagining our work in community. We forge partnerships with community change makers so that we follow more often than we lead. We listen, we amplify. This year, we kept building our relationship with organizations like the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, calling on UUs to walk and raise money for the Mother's Day Walk for Peace and to listen to the message of people impacted by violence. We mailed tenants' rights letters in partnership with City Life Vida Urbana, learning from organizers about the lives of people being displaced from this community. We partnered in efforts like the Closing the Racial Wealth Gap Hackathon, led by Dr. Carolyn Crockett, and alongside other partners like Morning Star Baptist Church, Dudley Square Neighborhood Initiative, and Teen Empowerment. We seek to make change with them. We are reimagining too our own core programs. This year, a guiding question has been, how do we bring our programs in alignment with this mission? What needs to change? How do we center the voices of young people in our after-school programs so that they shape its content? How do we make space for young people to be part of all of our work? How do we bring our workforce development programming to serve the proximate community of color? And how can we be sure we're listening to the Roxbury community as we go? And we are reimagining too our work together with you, our delegates, and our congregations. Our Congregational Engagement Task Force met through this past year, guided by the question of how congregations can help the urban ministry live more fully into this mission. You'll hear more about it from task force member, the Reverend Dave Egan, a little later tonight. One of the unique characteristics of the urban ministry is you. You, our member congregations, and those who represent those congregations. We know that the drive for justice that burns in the center of our congregations can help fuel our impact. And I am eager to see what is ahead for us together in our work. So thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for all the ways you have supported our work over this past year. And thank you for holding tight to the rails of this old ship as we keep turning and turning in a new direction. And thank you for imagining with us a world that is fairer and more just for all. And now it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, the Director of Facilities, Shamika Harrison. Shamika has served at the Urban Ministry for about a decade, and she has been a leader on our staff in pushing forward our commitment to open our doors and our green space wider and wider for the local community. She is a strong and steady voice in calling us to imagine how we can do more for Roxbury and in forging connections and partnerships. And she is somebody whose wise counsel I rely on and whose sense of our work always calls me forward. And I'm so pleased to welcome Shamika Harrison.
Thank you, Mary Margaret, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Shamika Harrison, Director of Facilities here at Urban Ministry. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to reflect on the year behind us. Facilities has continued to focus on the day-to-day operations of the building and the campus, such as conducting inspections, repairs, maintenance, safety, and all of the everyday upkeeping to ensure facilities is running as smoothly as possible. The past year, facilities played a very important role in connecting and forming relationships with businesses, community organizations, neighbors, and partners by building relationships through activating our green space in our facilities. Some of these connections were built by engaging and interacting with Casa Mirna during their on-site retreat, connecting with ACERDOME, which is a local Roxbury organization who provided vaccines, booster shots, gift cards, food, and back-to-school bags to the community. We also collaborated with Dee Dee's Cry kicking off our first community supper of the year in honor of Suicide Awareness Month. And lastly, we participated in Dee Dee's Cries Holiday Toy Drive, passing out free toys and winter coats to the families in the community, which was a joy to do. There are so many moving pieces and facilities that are done quietly behind the scenes that may go unseen. For example, our 8 neighborhood volunteer clock winders, as you may have seen during our wonderful slideshow during the opening of this meeting. They are the reason why our clock ticks each hour. I was honored to celebrate and acknowledge them by honoring them in an appreciation dinner to thank them for their dedication and faithfully climbing our steeple to wind the clock. Special thank you to our chef Ryan for preparing the food, which everyone enjoyed, and our special projects coordinator Roxanne Clark for the lovely decorations that you also seen in the slideshow. As you all know, the interior restoration of our meeting house is in full swing. Whew. We conduct weekly meetings with our contractors, our historic preservationists, and our designers to keep tabs on what's happening with the renovation. We also meet, update, and make decisions with our meeting house committee team, such as selecting paint colors for the meeting house. Just imagine standing at arm's length of the ceiling of the meeting house at the very top of the scaffolding. Now that was an experience of its own, along with watching the process of the renovation, which includes the installation of the floor to ceiling scaffolding, the storm windows being installed, the organs restored, the scraping and painting of the wall, the sprinkler installations, and so much more. I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys are excited as I am, but I'm very excited to be a part of this transformation as it transformed into the Roxbury Meeting House performance venue that the community is so looking forward to seeing. At this time, I would like to share just a short teaser that's created by Dream Collaborative. They are a minority-owned architectural firm, a designer who's working on the project with us. This video shows the connection of the project and its significance both historically and for the community.
First Church, Roxbury, and just had a little tour. Talked about the plaster, lighting, restoration. Fixtures will be updated to be electrical. Trying to use as many local and minority-owned subcontractors as we can. Inclusive and forward-thinking on the part of the urban ministry. We're literally throwing the doors open to the community and welcoming people in.
I think we're also excited beyond the preservation and the architectural interventions, what this will mean for the community and their ability to come back and sort of repossess the space. First, acknowledging this was a very significant resource, but then pushing that to think about what happens after it's been restored. They're not doing it for the restoration's sake. This is a resource that has spanned generations and hundreds of years in Boston, you know, going back to the founding of Massachusetts Bay Colony Company. They wanted to provide this resource to engender more history and more significant moments to kind of pay it forward, so to speak. And I think we're really happy to be a part of that.
Thank you, Vinny. Lastly, as you all may know, as Mary Margaret mentioned, but I just want to echo how meaningful it is that the Meeting House was designated as an official Boston landmark. So I'm very excited about that, and we're looking forward to celebrating with our neighbors in the Peace Garden along with you all on June 8th, and we will continue to move this work forward, and I look forward to the year ahead. Thank you and appreciation to you all, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shamika. I think Shamika just raised the rest of the money for our campaign. That's what I'm feeling. Our next presentation is by another wonderful staff member of the Urban Ministry, Bithia Israel, our Community Engagement Coordinator for Arts and Humanities. Bithia has been with the Urban Ministry for nearly 4 years, and she's brought her abundant creativity and her resourcefulness and her commitment to justice to this work. And she has been the author of some of our most creative programming, including some really creative efforts that happened during the onset of the pandemic shutdown. So I'm very happy to introduce Bithia Israel.
Thank you, Mary Margaret. Good evening, everyone. This year in community engagement and tours, we have further developed our tours program, incorporating advice from community leaders and business owners as well as seasoned tour directors in and around Boston, while expanding outreach for the recruitment of tour guide trainees. The tours have provided the opportunity for building deeper relationships with our neighbors and local institutions, including the business community of Nubian Square through our partnership with Roxbury Main Street. 4 tours are currently in motion, and they are the public art in and near Nubian Square, led by Diane Walters, educational institutions in Roxbury, led by me, the Trees of John Eliot Square, a historical perspective, led by Thomas Plant, and an economic pilot that is self-guided with introductory and debrief sessions on our campus. All of our tours address common themes of social justice and awareness of the richness of Roxbury, its history, and the impact of local activists who have continued to shape it. We continue to amplify artists connected with Roxbury through virtual events in the winter and live events in the warmer months. We have scheduled live performances and art workshops this summer, as well as an artist gallery night that you'll hear about this fall. Community suppers in partnership with the Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library have provided meaningful connections with community members, highlighting dynamic writings in our series entitled In Their Own Words. Lastly, I'd like to share an inspiring update, a documentary film that I put together which features the event that the Urban Ministry and local organizers coordinated to celebrate the elders of Highland Park. That documentary will be shown during this year's Roxbury International Film Festival on June 24th at Hibernian Hall. And now, Vinny will show us a glimpse of the film.
This looks happy. Hold on. Hold on.
Good looking people out here,
Show you. Are you sure you all elders? I don't know. Okay. Let's wait a second. I see you, Mr. Posey. Turn that lid up.
They had dreams and aspirations and visions, and they made them come true.
That gives you just a taste of a very powerful and compelling documentary that we were proud to be part of, that Bithya poured a lot of love and creativity into, and that you will have a chance to view in its entirety at that showing that Bithya mentioned at Hibernian Hall. We're really proud that we made it into the Roxbury Film Festival, so hope that you'll join us in watching it. Next, I am so pleased to introduce our Director of Programs, Peter Tam. Peter joined the organization 3 years ago during the shutdown and in the midst of our work toward a new mission, and he undertook the complicated work of overseeing 3 very diverse programs: our youth program, our domestic violence shelter, and our workforce program for survivors. And he kept them moving ahead during one of the most challenging times in our history, in American history. He has given his quiet and kind support to his staff as we have emerged from the shutdown and sought new pathways forward. So it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Peter Tam.
Thank you, Mary Margaret. Hi, everyone. Our programs have had another busy year of success along with obstacles. Believe in Success graduated more than 20+ students in the last 2 semesters. A fully booked renewal house is giving families and individuals a clean and attentive place to stay safe and rest. Lastly, Roxbury Youth Programs had 23 young people spend a full after-school academic year with us in hundreds of hours of programming. During the pandemic shutdown back in 2021, Believe in Success moved to a hybrid program. Believe in Success remained online over the last few years, serving even more survivors and increased the geographic area. As we fully move back to being in person and community, we look to serve our proximate Roxbury neighbors and to shape our work based on the input of neighbors and community partners. So this spring, we made the decision to graduate this online cohort of participants, spend the summer developing ways to support program alum, and listen to the community for how we can best bring programming in person to this neighborhood. We hope to bring a thoughtful and inclusive approach to this next evolution of urban ministry programming, whatever it may look like. Believe in Success has graduated over 120 survivors. And I wanted to take this time and opportunity to thank and appreciate program coordinators Chris Dickerson and Elise Lemons for their work with survivors this year. They were supported by social work interns Wande and Carlin, and 2 Believe in Success alumni interns as well. Roxbury Youth Programs moved into a 2-tier system for the first time this fall. 15 learning artists and 8 community artists learned about photography, videography, and graphic design through the lens of history, social justice, and community. I'm excited to share that we had thousands of hours of engagement with young people this year, and it's just the start as we look towards the summer and a new academic year. Finally, to share on Renewal House, I'd like to turn it over to our shelter manager, Marie Padilla.
Good afternoon. I can't seem to start the video. I think I have to be, it says the host has stopped it. But my name is Marie Padilla. I am the shelter manager for Renewal House. During this year, we have experienced great transition in Renewal House. One of our major transition is the former shelter manager, Ada Guadalupe, after 20 plus years with the organization, has retired, and I have transitioned into her role. And we're working on, just kind of propelling the program forward. And, we've had a few new things going on with Renewal House. We've had new furniture that we received a grant, and we've used some of the money for new furniture for the entire organization. I'm sorry, is that entire program, that is. And basic things like for desks for the staff and chairs and electronics and things of that nature. Along with that, we have managed to keep COVID out of the shelter. Since the participants have come back from the hotels, we've only had 2 outbreaks, which was pretty good compared to as many people have been staying there since then. So we've managed to stay COVID-free, that being with staff and program participants. We are a full shelter now. Things are back to normal for the most part, as normal that it can be. We have a lot of new hires within our program and are seeking to fill more positions in our program right now. And we're in the process of doing that. And we're also increasing shelter activities for our participants overall, and currently coordinating events for this summer. So we're working on that to try to just have more activities for our participants. And that's it. That's what we have going on so far.
Thank you, Marie. I just want to say that Marie, persevering in the midst of technical challenges, demonstrates how she has persevered through all the changes and challenges at Renewal House. So thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Margaret. Yeah, I know this is Zoom still, so we're gonna have those once in a while. Thank you, Marie, and thank you for all of your hard work this year. I want to just give that appreciation to you and to share that it's been really wonderful having you in this role. Next, I'd like to introduce a RYP learning artist, Francisco Landaverde, to talk about his project this year. So Francisco was a learning artist. Francisco is a 9th grader currently at O'Brien High School. I'm going to let him share. Francisco.
Hello, everyone. My name is Francisco, as Peter said. So I'm just going to give everyone a brief overview of my video. I'm a learning artist currently at RYP, and the topic I chose was immigration, and I did it based upon my father. He is an immigrant and he migrated from El Salvador, and it's just his journey and how rough it was and how impactful it was and how much it's impacted my life and how much it's motivated me to become a better person and a better scholar in school and persevere. And I'd just like to give a big thanks to the teaching artists there, Jabari and Bob. They were very good teachers when they came to the learning and for the video, the photography, everything, especially when they were very difficult sometimes, but I got through it. Editing, it was very difficult, but I was able to push through and persevere. And now I'm gonna pass it on to Vinny to show my video, La Aventura.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Francisco Landaverde, soy papá de Francisco y estoy aquí pues dispuesto a contarles un poquito de mi historia. Yo trabajaba en el campo con mi padre, era un agricultor, era una vida muy distinta a la de acá, trabajaba con los animales, haciendo agricultura, una vida bastante pobremente pero hermosa. La razón por la cual decidí emigrar, porque en ese entonces en mi país había una guerra también y estaba tratando de escapar de eso y también buscando mejores oportunidades. Y bueno, fue bastante difícil, pasé una experiencia complicada porque cuando venía cruzando México tomamos un bote dentro del agua por 24 horas sin parar. Fue duro porque fue un largo trayecto en el agua y si el bote se hundía, había la posibilidad que nosotros no saliéramos con vida, nadie ahí, porque no había salvavidas, nada. Eso fue algo que me marcó bastante. También estuvimos en México en prisión solo por estar pagando, solo por estar pasando de indocumentado. Eso me marcó bastante. Estamos al desierto 2 días, 2 noches y esa fue la forma como logramos cruzar. When I get to USA, I got my first job was cook line, like chef. My life changed for better. I feel here in this country like a free. Like I don't have planes, but I can fly. I feel like so different, but for better. You can have here the American dream. You can get anything you want if you work hard.
Thank you so much, Francisco, for sharing that beautiful and inspiring video. I'm really grateful that you were willing to share that with us. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Monique Marshall-Veal. Monique has been here for nearly a dozen years, and she's worn many hats, including serving as Director of Special Project and as HR advisor. But her unofficial role has been as a quiet and firm conscience of the organization. someone who persistently questions, speaks the truth in love, and is an advocate for young people and for racial justice. She has guided me and advised me throughout my time at the Urban Ministry, and I am grateful for her leadership. She has also been my partner in 3 years of community conversations, a concept that she and I created also during the pandemic shutdown. And I am very grateful and happy to introduce her now to share more about our community conversations work. Welcome, Monique.
Thank you, Mary Margaret. Good evening, everyone. So as Mary Margaret said, we started community conversations about 3 years ago. And conversations highlight the history, art, and experiences of Black and Indigenous people of color. These conversations provide an opportunity to raise awareness around some of the issues plaguing Boston's residents of color. Closing the racial wealth gap was our focus this season. We heard from speakers who were in the educational system, the local community, our wonderful RYP youth leaders, and faith-based leaders. The conversations highlighted why the gap exists, the importance of education, and why we must all support BIPOC banks and businesses in order to contribute to closing the racial wealth gap. These conversations also provide information on how to support the organizations in their efforts to help people of color create new pathways to closing the racial wealth gap. And our call to action tonight for our delegates and congregations is to contribute to the closing of the racial wealth gap by supporting our Black and Indigenous people of color owned businesses and restaurants. So when you're thinking about purchasing a gift, ordering a meal, sharing business expertise, or just enjoying a night out on the city, remember to do your part by supporting local business owners and community-based organizations. And now we will show a montage of our community conversations. Thank you.
When I talk about wealth development, when all of us talk about wealth development, we know how it can be done. But of course, I hope we all believe and have that the way that it was done by Europeans was incredibly unethical, to use a nice word. And of course, it was incredibly vicious. So when we talk about advancement, we are talking about advancement for most Black people around wealth and not for a few.
So leakage is one of those economic terms that describes how capital or income escapes our community. So instead of it being invested in a business or in a retail space in Roxbury or in Nubian Square, you end up going to Back Bay. You end up going to Seaport. You end up going to, Coolidge Corner, wherever you may go for to buy lunch or to invest or to buy certain things. And many a times it's due to a community not having the infrastructure and forcing residents to be displaced even in their economic engagement with entities like retail. And so that's what we mean by leakage. That's the thing that we're trying to address.
All across the country, but these are all ag producers or processors who are of color. And I will tell you, in every single case, they are facing discrimination. SBA. One of the biggest reasons why Black and brown businesses, even if they get started, fail is lack of follow-on capital.
Why does that wealth gap exist?
I'm going to give some personal factoid, so people realize how very close to just having civil rights people of color and women for that matter had in my family, to have college educated parents and to sort of inherit wealth that they accumulated because of affirmative action. The first generation is my generation.
The history of Roxbury Community College in so many ways parallels the history of Black people in this country, the history of people of color in this country. The vision for the college actually started in the 1960s, and it took over a decade for these great visionaries, not just to have this vision, but to hold on to it and fight for it, because education is it is like in the DNA of Black folks. You know, we grew up understanding that the way out of everything is education.
And I am so excited to step back this evening. Me and my colleague, Monique, we usually moderate these, and this is the second year of what we hope will be a long-standing tradition where the young people just take this community conversation over. And I'm really eager to sit back and learn from them this evening.
So excited to watch this unfold. You all are amazing, and thank you.
I feel like when Black people already have like the expectation that like they have this mindset that like if they are to get pulled over by police, like something bad could happen, it really affects their mental health because they grew up just with that mindset and like a bad relationship with the police when people like view the police as people who are supposed to protect you. And like I feel like for a whole group of people to have that type of mindset towards the police is just like, it's really sad. And I feel like it just like, it really is detrimental to like Black people's mental health because we feel like we don't have a system that protects us and we're constantly in danger and no one is there to help us. So.
In my opinion, I feel like this world was not built for minorities, but it was built by minorities, which is actually really crazy because they're like, in my opinion, they're like the foundation of everything.
And to know again, as I alluded to my family's own story, as slaves, as enslaved people in South Carolina, the reality of enslavement was as much a social and legal condition as it was an economic condition. And so what it meant to be property, what it meant to work for no wages, absolutely starts us in the need to have an economic discussion of redress, which absolutely understands the foundation of the country's economic health, economic identity rooted in slavery is an economic proposition that must be set straight. Let's talk about all of it, absolutely. So reparations, conversations about infrastructure investments, conversations about education, conversations about what are we even talking about in this moment of a racial reckoning? What's the rest of the conversation that means setting people right economically, socially, and politically? And reparations absolutely is part of that conversation. So I'm glad you raised it, absolutely.
Thank you for introducing that, Monique. It is an honor to do this work and to hear from those voices and to learn from them. And it is also an honor, as you can get a taste of this evening, it's an honor to work with all the committed and talented staff members of the Urban Ministry. And I would not stop you if right now you wanted to take a moment in your chat and give a little love to the amazing staff members of the UU Urban Ministry, who you saw a little bit about the work that they are doing that is creative, that is courageous, that is new, that is trying new things, and that is really working hard to live into our mission. So thank you for the love for the UU Urban Ministry staff. I'm grateful to you all very much. And now it is my honor to turn this part of the meeting over to our fearless board members. This is a board whose goodwill and hard work has been foundational to the strength of our organization, to its accomplishments, and to the potential that we have now to keep moving forward. They are, quite simply, outstanding. I am grateful for each of them and to do the work of leading this organization forward in partnership with them. So I'm very happy to turn it over to Carla, Carol, and Tom, I think. Welcome all.
Thank you, Mary Margaret, and thank you for your brilliant leadership and the gifts and contributions of your staff. Carol, it's all yours.
Thank you. And thank you, Mary Margaret, for all that you do for our wonderful organization and for the staff and participants who make it really what it is. I'm Carol Lowy, a member of the nominating committee. On behalf of the entire committee, it's my pleasure to present for your approval a roster of nominees for delegates at large, members of the board of directors, and for next year's nominating committee. First, I'm going to read the slate for delegates at large, and our board chair, Carla Baer, will call for a vote so that these delegates can vote for the other nominees along with the rest of the delegates. And then I will read the nominees for the members of board of directors and then for the nominating committee for 2023 to 2024. We'll vote on each of these groups in turn. Vinny, I think you're going to pull up a slide of the delegates at large. I ask that you all accept these nominations for delegates at large. Ms. Marcia Buttman, Mr. Peter Coccoluto, Ms. Kayla Drumgold, Reverend John Hickey, Mr. Marshall Hughes, Mr. Brian Keith, Ms. Jean Krasnow, Ms. Marissa Luce, Ms. Christine Nelson, Mr. Thomas Plant, Ms. Nichelle Porter, Mr. Douglas Putas, Mr. Tony Rodriguez, Mr. Tom Roos, and Ms. Lisa Snellings.
Thank you, Carol. May I have a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Carol. And a second?
I second.
Thank you, Tom. We can go to a vote. And I think, Vinny, you're going to put a poll up. And I would invite our delegates to cast a vote, yes, no, or abstain. Well, we have a unanimous vote. Terrific. Carol, next nomination.
All right, for the delegates, I will ask you to please accept these nominations for the board of directors. 3 individuals who are returning board members and 1 individual who will be new to the board. The candidates currently serving on the Urban Ministry Board of Directors are Reverend Dave Egan, Reverend John Hickey, and Ms. Jean Krasnow. The new candidate for the Urban Ministries Board of Directors is Mr. Thomas Plant.
And do I have a motion to accept these nominations? Carol?
I so move.
Thank you. A second, Tom?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor can or opposed can vote on the poll that Vinny's going to put up. Again, an opportunity to vote yes, no, or abstain. With one abstention, all the rest yes. So these folks are elected. Carol, election of the nominating committee.
Our last election is candidates for the nominating committee whose term will expire next year. So it's a 1-year appointment. Reverend John Hickey, Mr. Marshall Hughes, Ms. Carol Lowy, me, Ms. Marissa Luce, and Ms. Lisa Snellings.
Great. Here are the candidates. Can I have a motion to accept the slate?
I
Carol?
so move.
Thank you. Second, Tom?
I second.
Thanks very much. A poll will pop up so folks can vote. Let's see. I guess let's make choice 1 is yes, and choice 2 is no. All right, unanimous again. Thank you so very much. And thank you to the nominating committee, Carol and your fellow members. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce Tom Roos, who has ably stepped in for our longtime treasurer, Alan Cody, as treasurer, and we haven't missed a beat, thanks to Tom's really careful attention to both the big picture and the detail. Tom, it's delightful to have you as treasurer. Congratulations on a very successful first year.
Thank you, Carla. Good evening, everyone. Vinny, I think you're going to pop up a few slides. Yeah, so I'm going to give a brief report on our financial activities in the year, focus on our fiscal year 2023 operations, and a brief view of our budget and aspirations for fiscal year 24. Next slide, please. So if you look at the left column, this is our budget for the year, fiscal year 2023. And as you can see, our budget was to raise revenues of $2.3 million and to have expenses of $2.3 million for a break-even aspirational budget. You can also see in the budget that there are 5 line items where we really get our revenues: individual contributions, church contributions, board contributions, grants, and government funding. That's about $1.5 million altogether in the budget. And then we anticipated taking $806,000 out of our investment funds to come up with the $2.3 million in revenue. Similarly, the different categories for expenses are listed there. How do we actually do? Well, our revenues actually came in just a little bit under our budget plan. It came in at $2.23 million, so $79,000 below what we had anticipated. But continuing on the expense side, we actually spent $186,000 less than we had anticipated in the budget. Therefore, the net of all of that is that we are in a positive position of $107,033 of total net revenue, as opposed to the break even that we had anticipated. If you look briefly on the right side, the fourth column is our budget for 2024. Generally, the categories remain the same, and aspirationally, our revenue is pretty much what it was hoped to be in the course of fiscal year 23, and similarly for expenses. Therefore, we again are anticipating and driving towards a break-even budget, expenses equaling revenues. Next slide, please. So a couple of comments on what makes up the results that we had. So there's some pretty good news in the revenue results. Our support from individuals and churches and board members increased 22% year over year, which is great. Individual contributions increased above our budget, at least more than 11%. We did not hit the aggressive target we set for grants, but that said, we still increased 45% in our grant revenues over the previous year, which I think is highly successful. Again, this $806,000 was drawn from our investment funds to support the urban ministry's operational expenses, and an additional $400,000 was drawn to support capital expenses for the meeting house for the John Elliott Corporation. Next. As we look towards 2024, the focus for revenue is continuing to fundraise for the meeting house, but as that's really drawing towards a conclusion, to focus on inviting our significant donors who have helped so much with the meeting house to support our ongoing programming and even maintenance of the good work that's been done on the meeting house. We want to continue to develop our grant capabilities and continue the success and growth that we had in the course of the current year. And we are adding a new development staff member who will focus on congregations in that aspect of our community and our fundraising opportunities. And that person will be coming on board during the fiscal year. Next. Our expense results in the current, or the year just ended, I should say our fiscal year ends April 30th, so the year just ended. And again, the caveat, the financial information I provided at the beginning is preliminary. We still need to get it finalized for the year, but that will come and we'll have audited financials in several months. Expense results for the year, our expenses were 8% under budget. The majority of this good variance was from underspending due to the delays that happen when people leave and we look to rehire. And also the staff as a whole kept a very tight focus on the expense lines because of all the uncertainties that we're living with these days. Next, please. As we look towards fiscal year 24, the strategies are on the expense side to note that we're actually adding and reshuffling some positions so that we can bring on 3 staff people focused on the facility that we want to make sure we can begin to open the campus in the community and open the campus to the community and open the meeting house much more availably than we were able to do to date. So that's a funding choice that we've made. There are a lot of things to manage in the course of the year and variables. As always, Mary Margaret and her team will keep a very close eye on expenses, make adjustments as required. And there's quite a significant delegation to the management team in creating their budgets and managing towards the budget as anticipated. So there's empowerment there, and that team does an excellent job. So just briefly on our investment funds, we have the very good fortune to have a significant amount of investments that we can use for a couple of purposes. I mentioned that we used about $800,000 in the course of the year to enable us to spend more than we actually brought in from contribution revenues in order to fulfill the mission of the organization. So we were not immune from the financial difficulties that the financial markets had in the course of the year. So as you can see, fiscal year 22, the end of that year, we had a balance of $18.3 million. We had some income, we paid some fees for management, we had some gains, actually some losses, and we dispersed money. So at this point in time, as of April 30th, our investment funds market value is 16.7. So yes, it's gone down in a material way from where we started at the end of fiscal year 22, but $16.7 million still gives us significant capacity to move into the areas that we want to move into and get the financial support for that. Next, Vinny. Right, so this is a little hard to read, but this is a quick outline of the capital project. So these funds that are listed here are outside of the budget. These are not income and revenue items. This is money we anticipate or hope to raise and anticipate spending for various projects. So there are several new projects to be initiated in fiscal year 24. Improvements to the green space, which we are hoping to raise $82,000 for. Perimeter fence, $25,000. Meeting house disability is a big one, $343,000, which we've actually secured funding through the CPA. So that's confirmed, and that will move ahead. And then some additional disabilities access projects for $30,000. So some of these represent areas that need to be fundraised for. The meeting house disability has been secured, which again is excellent news. The existing project, the meeting house, we anticipate spending more than $1 million, $1.1 million in the course of the upcoming fiscal year. We've raised of that amount $860,000, so there's another $240,000 to raise, and that will help us complete the restoration projects. Is there another slide, Vinny? I'm not sure. Guess not. Okay. Thank you very much for driving the slides, Vinny. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the Reverend David Egan, who's going to present the Congregational and Delegate Task Force report.
Thank you, Tom, for that nice introduction. Yes, it's been my honor to serve on the Congregational Engagement Task Force. Over the past year, our work has been guided by trying to answer the following questions. How can member congregations be more fully engaged in helping the urban ministry fulfill its mission? And also, how can the urban ministry better support congregations' racial justice work? Well, in order to begin to answer some of these questions, we conducted a survey of current delegates and held focus group meetings with both board chairs and with ministers. There have also been efforts, of course, to gather perspectives of urban ministry staff and stakeholders from the Roxbury community but that work was outside the scope of the Congregational Task Force. We obtained input from 38 delegates, from 20 lay leaders from member congregations, and from 10 ministers. And all 33 congregations were represented. And a bit of what we learned. Some of the perspectives we learned from delegates, they reported that few congregations have a formal process for selecting delegates. The vast majority volunteer for the position on their own initiative. Quite a few were recruited by other delegates or by their ministers. The delegates see themselves and are recognized by their ministers and board chairs as ambassadors to the UU Urban Ministry. Their role in the urban ministry governance was never mentioned. Delegates are primarily focused on keeping their congregation informed about the urban ministry activities and events and enhancing the organization's visibility. We asked lay leaders and ministers for input about requiring a more formal selection process to elevate the delegate role in the eyes of their congregations and to increase the urban ministry's visibility. We received an overall negative response to that question. Board appointment or election of delegates would require changing bylaws or might diminish other roles in congregants' eyes. Nominating committees are already having difficulty filling positions, and elevating the delegate role might make it seem more onerous and discourage more volunteers. One suggestion was to offer best practices for delegate selection rather than imposing requirements. So that was some really good information we learned from our delegates. As far as engagement with the urban ministry's mission, lay leaders and ministers seem to be engaged by the urban ministry's new mission, appreciating its much more specific focus on anti-racism and economic justice rather than on congregations. They reported a varied level of knowledge about what the urban ministry does to carry out its mission. The majority saw themselves as having limited knowledge, and they were somewhat less knowledgeable about what their congregations were doing to engage in the urban ministry's work. It appears that smaller groups of members had significant engagement, but that the congregations as a whole do not have a broad knowledge of the urban ministry. We asked lay leaders and ministers for input on 2 pilot programs that might engage congregation members in helping the urban ministry carry out its mission: Roxbury Tours and Pro Bono Consulting. The groups expressed strong interest in both. When asked about obstacles, some shared concern about congregation members' reluctance to travel into the city, about their need to focus on rebuilding post-COVID, and being generally spread too thin with current social justice activities. Suggestions offered included adding an economic empowerment component to tours where participants would be encouraged to make purchases from local businesses and to make consulting asks very specific. And as far as increasing financial engagement, congregations demonstrate their financial commitment in a variety of ways, including allocating funds for the $250 membership dues, to holding special fundraisers for the urban ministry programs, or having periodic plate collections on Sunday morning. We asked lay leaders and ministers about increasing the current dues that member congregation contribute, or including urban ministry as a line item in their annual budgets. They cautioned against changing current practices. The suggestion of a tiered approach based on size and resources of a specific congregation or an honor congregation program were not very well received. Making changes would potentially create tension around competing interests and precipitate competition between congregations. And regarding supporting racial justice work, we learned that most congregations are very involved in racial justice activities, especially book discussions and study groups, as well as community-based collaborations. The urban ministry provides a vehicle for this work by offering opportunities to invite Mary Margaret into their pulpits, to sponsor community conversations, which we already learned a bit about, to organize events for urban ministry programs, to raise funds, to donate talent and equipment, and to provide holiday gifts. Ministers offered suggestions about how the urban ministry can support their congregations, including ideas such as being a resource for how congregations might reach out to their local communities, encouraging deeper reflection, offering education about how congregations might examine their own history regarding enslavement, and to promote change in practices which perpetuate white supremacy culture, and also sponsoring an opportunity for youth to come together across congregations for a day of Roxbury tours and other racial justice-oriented programming. The key takeaways that we found from all of this was that all three groups of stakeholders appreciated deeply the opportunity to hear from other congregations. The urban ministry's role in bringing them together to inform our assessment was much appreciated. There should be focus on creating ongoing opportunities for such connection. The Congregational Engagement Task Force might be instrumental in further exploration of the delegate role as ambassador and how best to institutionalize it in service of increasing congregational engagement with the UU Urban Ministry. And with that, I will pass it off to Carla once more.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for your work on the task force. I'm going to have a brief report of the chair, and I want to start it by thanking Reverend Catherine Cullen, who co-chaired the Congregational Engagement Task Force with Mary Margaret, and who will be leaving the board as she is leaving. She's a longtime minister in our Duxbury congregation, and she is relocating from the area. And I want to welcome Thomas Plant to the board, a longtime friend and supporter of the urban ministry, deeply knowledgeable about the meeting house, about Roxbury, and we are just delighted to have him join the board. And thank you, delegates, for approving his naming him a member of the board. And thank you, delegates, for participating so actively in the work of the urban ministry this past year. In my report, in the annual report, I highlighted the work of the Congregational Engagement Task Force and the Tours program, and you've heard more about those in this evening's meeting. I want to highlight that one of the things that the urban ministry has been asked to do is to better support the racial justice work of congregations. And to that end, the board has been developing strategies to support board members, delegates, and volunteers to develop a deeper and shared understanding and language for our new mission of dismantling systemic racism and white supremacy culture. And so this fall, the weekend of October 20, 21, and 22, we are co-sponsoring with some of our member delegations, Brookline, Lexington, Melrose, Wellesley Hills. We are co-sponsoring the Jubilee 3 anti-racism training that's offered by prominent UUs Paula Cole-Jones, Dr. Leon Spencer, and Lutricia Keller. It's a 3-day intensive online training with the opportunity for in-person Saturday engagement. It's being planned for that weekend in October. It aims to help UUs develop a shared analysis of racism and its individual, institutional, and cultural manifestations, and to apply the common understanding to the history, culture, and institutional structure of our society, and to envision action steps locally and in the greater Boston area. We're going to share program details this summer, but want you to be on the lookout for it, and hope that you will already pencil in that weekend of October 20, 21, 22 to engage yourselves and or members of your congregation in what promises to be an exciting prospect. We'll work to coordinate ways that we can have some in-person components to it as well. I want to conclude my report by just thanking you. This is important work. This is work that just must be done every day when we read the newspapers. It gives us reminders of why this is important work, and that we must persist, we must be resilient, we must be imaginative, and it is very exciting and a privilege for me to serve on your board and to serve with Mary Margaret and the talented staff that she has assembled. I'm going to assume that everyone will be very happy if, without objection, I adjourn the business part of this meeting and turn this over to the Reverend Mary Margaret Earl for some final words.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, all these wonderful board members who care a lot and give a lot and really are a steady presence in this organization. I am grateful for you all. Before my closing, I want to say that while this is not a football game and it's not a basketball game and it's especially not a recent Celtics game, we do have an MVP tonight, a most valuable player in our annual meeting. And so I want to celebrate our MVP for the annual meeting, who is Mr. Vinnie Miles, our Director of Development. If you don't know, the annual meeting is a wonderful celebration and it's a bear. It takes up lots of time, messaging, shepherding, emails, coordinating, and all the hidden work of showing all those polls and videos. And so I want you to please share a little bit of love also with Vinnie behind the scenes for making tonight go so smoothly, and like all the work that went into it. I'm really grateful. And I know all the staff is really grateful for, and the board is grateful for his efforts. And so I don't know if this counts as a benediction, but my closing words to you all are, I will see you next year at annual meeting in person in the meeting house. So thank you for being here. Many blessings as you move about your evening and your days, and I look forward to working forward for justice with you. Go in peace and faith. Thank you.